Have you ever thought of hellfire? Of course you have. No self-respecting devout Christian can resist. But have you ever really thought about hellfire? The dogs and I have been thinking a lot about hell recently, and that got us to thinking. Details matter. Christians have questions. The dogs have the same questions. Like, how does hell maintain its fiery atmosphere? Or, how does a lake of fire burn? We did the legwork and are here now ready to answer these and other burning questions. As has become our norm, we will close out this video with some questions for the young Earth creationist community. Hellfire is our topic du jour. What have you dug up for us on this interesting topic, number one?
Today's topic is a bit more morbid than usual for us. We will keep it as light as we can and leave the evangelizing to the experts who have much more time and money to devote to all aspects of hell. In the Bible, there is no hell in the Old Testament to scare Jews into good behavior. Jews observe the biblical laws without the need for eternal torment. But those Christians, the specter of eternal torment in a place like hell, they need to be scared into doing good and living right. Hell is a major tenet of Christianity. Television and internet evangelists warn constantly about hell and the risks of being sent there as eternal punishment for your sins. Not for crimes against humanity, mind you. Just for sins that include not worshiping the one true God. We'll flash up a handful of references to hell and hell's fires now, courtesy Got Questions Ministries, where the fiery conditions that await the wicked are described throughout the New Testament. Matthew calls it unquenchable fire in 3:12 and eternal fire in 25:41. Mark says hell is a place where the fire is not quenched in 9:48. Luke joins in with his place of torment and fire in chapter 16, verses 23 and 24. 2 Thessalonians 1:9 says hell is a place of everlasting destruction. In Revelation, John describes hell as a place of burning sulfur where the smoke of their torment will rise up forever and ever at chapter 14, verses 10 and 11. And John weighs in again in Revelation at 20:10 to tell us about the lake of burning sulfur, where the wicked are tormented day and night forever and ever. These passages, plus all the rest that reference fire, clearly imply the burning is of something physical and flammable. We can only conclude that souls are physical, material, and flammable. But some other hell things are just not clear to us. The words hell and hellfire do not appear in the Bible. Our Bibles, RSV and NIV, have many references to fire, eternal, everlasting, and otherwise, plus lots of death, destruction, and torment. But not hell or hellfire specifically. And the word hell only appears in the King James Version. We checked. It almost sounds like hell didn't exist until the KJV was published in 1611. Why should it differ depending on the Bible version you use? How is that even possible? Hellfire. What is it? The word refers to the eternal fires of hell used to torment sinners. That was easy. And one more bit of vocab for today. Brimstone is the old-timey way of referring to sulfur. There are a few clues about what hell is like in Scripture, even if the word hell itself does not appear. For all the burning going on down there, there has to be an opening with an atmosphere. So, hell needs to be an open cavity, right? For the lake of fire with burning things and smoke and molten sulfur and all. Burning sulfur generates sulfur dioxide, a poisonous gas, and sulfuric acid, a highly corrosive acid. Who can breathe that? This must be what we mean by hellish conditions. And about that lake of fire? A lake full of molten sulfur. What a sight that'll be. We think we'll be seeing that lake of fire firsthand pretty soon. We were taught hell burns using the bodies and souls of the damned. The Bible implies those are the fuel. Then we did the research for this video. Because of the way bodies and souls burn, they are not really fuel per se. Hellfire is not really being used to generate heat. The heat from hell is the byproduct. It's waste heat of the biblical burn. Hell is more for disposing of the bodies and souls. But the eternal aspect puzzles us still. How do you get the bodies and souls to burn up then get recycled for another burn? How does that work? We are not pastors or Bible scholars. We're dogs. But it seems to us that there might be even more discrepancies at play here. Another three now. Does hell exist right now, or is it more of a promise for the future? If hell already exists, is it burning now, or has God not yet lit her up? And does hell burn bodies or souls or both? We have seen and heard both answers to all these questions, and we find ourselves unsatisfied. Kindly drop us a note in the comments if we missed something. We were in a hurry, and we could really use clarification here. There's a whole lot riding on the answer. Why are basic questions like these still unanswered after 2,000 years?
What the hell happens in hell? We're dogs. How are we supposed to know? We haven't been indoctrinated like far too many humans have. Have you noticed all those interweb evangelists, preachers, and priests can't seem to tell us one single coherent story about hell and the afterlife? Protestant denomination A is different from Roman Catholics, who differ from Protestant denomination B, which also happens to differ from the Eastern Orthodox denominations. Hell, salvation, and all the rest are all different. Unbelievable. Eternal is a really long time. Bodies and souls destined to hell for eternal burning, the eternburn, if you will, probably will have to be disposed of after final judgment. Hell will be a crowded place. How do bodies and souls burn eternally? Is it a slow, continuous burn, or is it an endless full burn, regeneration, full burn cycle? We always thought hell was always open for business. We think that's Roman Catholics only. Then we learned that many other Christian denominations think that there are no souls in hell just yet. Those innumerable denominations seem to split between hell always being open and motel hell not being open for occupancy until after final judgment. How can the different denominations disagree on the essential elements of eternal damnation? How? The New Testament uses the word fire a lot. But what will be burning in hell? Will it be bodies or souls or both? The Bible clearly implies that souls are burning in hell with fire. Nowhere do the prophets describe fire, torment, sulfur, smoke, or burning as anything but real, physical, material things. That tells us that souls are also real, physical, material things. There's no mention of metaphysical fire and smoke in the Bible. Those are recent made-up concepts. Let's look at a couple of biblical hellfire references. Luke tells us in 16:23 through 25 that the rich man in hell had the ability to feel torment and agony, plus he still had the ability to see and to speak. Luke is telling us that those already in hell have a body of some kind, but provided no real details. So the Bible says that people in hell have a body of some kind. Matthew 10:28 tells us that Jesus warned us to fear him who can destroy both body and soul in hell. So, Matthew also clearly says people will have physical bodies in hell, not metaphysical bodies, real ones. Some object to thinking of physical bodies in hell because if the hellfire is an actual physical material fire, the bodies will be burning forever, continuously regenerating to be burned again in an endless, eternal cycle. The Bible does not say how this will work. We'll just have to make up our version. Scripture does teach us that our resurrection bodies will be different from our earthly bodies, but only by telling us our new resurrection bodies will be suitable for an eternity spent in either heaven or in hell. Does that mean our hell suits will be different from your heaven suits? Flame retardant, perhaps? Would that be with or without self-cooling technology? Like those still suits that the Fremen wore in Dune. Guidance from some Christian denominations implies we'll be in some special kind of body different from our earthly bodies when we get to hell. Will our souls all be wandering around wearing some kind of meat jacket that can't stop burning? Is that really what's in store for us? We can hear the directive now.
Everyone! Everyone! Hang up your earthly meat jackets on these hangers. Neatly. You'll need them again for your resurrection at final judgment. If you haven't already labeled them with your full name, now is the time. Then form up into this next line for your new hell suits. Custom fitted.
What goes on in hell stays in hell. Am I right?
What makes hell so hellish, anyway? Why, it's the hellfire, of course. Let's leap from the frying pan into the fire. What exactly is fire? Wikipedia tells us that fire is the rapid oxidation of a fuel in the chemical process of combustion. You get a fire when you heat a fuel to its ignition temperature. Once the fuel is hot enough at that temp in the presence of oxygen, it will combust, it will burn. Combustion releases its own heat, which then heats up more fuel, which continues the chain reaction without the need for an external heat source, original or otherwise. Flames are the most visible, soothing, and satisfying part of the fire. Don't you think?
As with all things science, we'll start today off with what we know, and that involves burning actual physical bodies and souls. We do not apologize for this ghoulish approach. For duty and humanity, we found it very difficult to find information on the temperatures and the heat energy required to burn physical bodies. Firefighternow.com says the flash point of human flesh is 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit, 870 degrees centigrade. We'll call that the flesh point. Cremation is typically carried on at temps between 1,400 and 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, 760 to 980 degrees Celsius. At cremation temps, Satan would get the maximum amount of body and soul burning with the minimum amount of emissions and with no smoke. It's an efficiency thing, but there is a reference to smoke in Revelation 14:11. You get smoke when the thing you're burning doesn't completely burn. That smoke means hell doesn't burn crematorium hot. National Institutes for Health says complete incineration of a human body takes 2 or 3 hours. That's largely based on the water content, but the body size and the body's fat content also control the burn time. We'll guess that souls burn much faster. They can't possibly have the same water and fat contents that physical bodies have. No way. The Bible does not explain souls, so we can't really say much about souls. Although our favorite meal is fillet of sole, and we'd never leave home without wearing them. So, we think it's reasonable to assume human souls burn about the same way as human bodies do. And about our destination, hell. The most fundamentalist of Christian denominations seem to think that hell is a real physical place. That means to us that hellfire must also be a real, physical, material thing. If hell is real, and hellfire is real, then it only stands to reason that souls are also real, physical, material things, right? And flammable.
Is hellfire a regular fire or something a little more, exotic? The Bible's not clear on this point. No one has ever seen hellfire and lived to tell the tale. We'll guess that hellfire must be a special fire. There are different kinds of fires. Code 10 from the U.S. National Fire Protection Association classifies different kinds of fires by their fuels. The official NFPA fire kinds are Class A through Class K, and you can see that hellfire is its own special fire class, H. The different kinds of fires have different fuels that require different fire extinguishers to control the flames. Which kind of fire extinguisher would we need if we wanted to put out the fires of hell? We'd like to be prepared, if you know what we mean. Hellfire is Class H fire. So, we should pick up a few Class H extinguishers specifically for controlling hellfire. We have not seen extinguishers with a Class H rating before. They must be new. We're sure we will see them for sale as we get closer to the end times. But will we be able to carry the extinguishers through hell's security? There might be a flaw in our plan.
Fire professionals use the fire triangle to illustrate what a fire needs to be successful. The main ingredients for a good fire are oxygen, fuel, heat, and an ignition source. 3 main ingredients. Hence the triangle. The ignition source can double up and also be the source of the heat. Look closely at that fire triangle. A good fire is one when all 3 ingredients react together with an ignition source. Sometimes fire professionals and pyromaniacs extend the triangle into a tetrahedron by adding a 4th ingredient, the specific chemical reaction. But we're old-fashioned, so we're going to keep the triangle. Take any of these 3 or 4 essentials away and we will have no fire, or an existing fire will go out. Let's look at those 3 main ingredients for a minute. First is oxygen. We showed in an earlier video that there are no openings or cavities large enough to fit hell and all its damned souls inside Earth. So this is actually a moot point. But we shall press on. But the hell were inside Earth, which we proved it cannot be. How would hell get its oxygen? Through open conduits? Caves and caverns? Where? How? So many questions. Just the lake of fire alone will need a considerable supply of oxygen to burn efficiently. God's pretty frugal and cheap with his dough, so we know he wouldn't spend his cash on oxygen tanks or cylinders that need to be transported and refilled, incurring expensive handling charges. So, there has to be a high-capacity intake directly from the atmosphere. The fires could be sucking oxygen in from the surface, but where? We should be able to find the intakes. Find us the caves. We imagine the intake could look something like this and could also be used as body and soul access to hell. Awesome and beautiful but imposing rock formations. Don't let the stalactites fool you. Those will seriously impede hell's airflow. So the cave should look a little more like this one. Ah, unless God has not yet lit the fire. We will not know where the intake is if it's not yet in use. The second ingredient of hellfire is soul fuel. So, back to burning in hell. Burn, baby, burn. We're guessing there will be an unlimited supply of unrighteous and non-believer bodies and souls heading down the hellway. That is God's soul fuel for hell. By our reasoning, the bodies and souls in hell are consigned to hell for disposal by hellfire and are not strictly speaking fuel. Here on Earth's surface we call that cremation. But it's supposed to be eternal. For the whole hellfire thing to work, we need to ask a few difficult questions so we can, flesh out a few of our thoughts. Did you know that burning a human body is endothermic? Chemical reaction takes in more heat than it gives off. Fresh human bodies are about 65 to 70% water. Hell's operators will need to provide a massive amount of heat just to boil off the water before the body or soul is dry enough to burn. Just like firewood needs to dry before it burns well. We think bodies and souls will not burn hot enough on their own to ignite newly arriving bodies and souls. That's why hell will require a constant supply of fuel, that's the sulfur to keep the hellfire burning. The best estimate we found was 100 megajoules, 95,000 BTUs, just to preheat a typical body and boil off the water. Then we'll need another 20 megajoules, 19,000 BTUs per kilogram dry body weight to burn the dry body to a crisp. That'll add up to a hellish amount of sulfur. How does God measure his soul fuel supply? Humans measure firewood in terms of cords, which is a neat and tidy stack 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet, or 128 cubic feet of dried wood. That would be 3.6 cubic meters for our Canadian viewer. Those are all one cord stacks. The guys who stack like that are craftsmen. At this point, we wanted to flash up on screen an image or two of human bodies stacked like cordwood. But all the images were from the Holocaust. So, no. Much too gruesome and disrespectful. We can find tables of the heat contents of the wood our humans burn in their stoves to keep us warm. For us, heat is reported in BTUs. More civilized parts of the world use joules. We were unable to find any information that shows the heat content specifically of souls. This is a critical missing piece for today's evaluation. Does anyone know the heat content of a soul? Without knowing that, we'll be really handicapped in our discussion today about soul fuel. We'll just have to estimate it if we need it. Maybe we won't really need it today. The last ingredient of hellfire is some kind of heat. Will hellfires generate enough heat to keep the fires burning? With enough sulfur, sure. With just bodies and souls? Not a chance. No way. The burning bodies and souls won't reach auto-ignition temps on their own without the sulfur burning as hot as it does. Just think of it like cooking or grilling. You need to provide the heat to cook the meat. And remember that even crematoria burn a fuel to keep the bodies burning all the way to the end. How much heat does hell produce? We just don't know. We assume the rocks surrounding hell will keep us up here nicely insulated from hell's heat. But we don't know that for certain. The fires will have to be carefully managed to make sure the fires of hell do not go out. And we'll also need an ignition source. God has a few good, well-proven ignition choices: lightning, cigarettes, power line sparks, engine sparks, white phosphorus magnifying glasses, or he could just flick his bic.
Coffee, tea, or a flick of my bic.
Sidebar: we've heard stories that small humans used to burn ants with magnifying glasses on hot, sunny summer days. No one that we know, of course. Should we be worried that God will turn his magnifying glass on us? He did flood the whole place and kill almost everyone and everything when he was mad at us a few thousand years ago. After the flood, a little magnifying glass fire punishment would be easy for him to justify.
We have a checklist that we think will help move our discussion along today. Let's go through it. Oxygen. The air that we breathe is about 21% oxygen. Fires need at least 16% oxygen to breathe. Plenty of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. But how to get the air down to hell? Now this could be a problem. We really can't check this one off yet. Let's see how we do with the rest of the fire ingredients. Fuel, the bodies and souls of the departed and the damned, the soul fuel. Of that we will have plenty. What will the water content of the bodies and souls be when delivered to hell? We just established that the bodies and souls won't burn well when fresh because of the water. The drier the better. God has directed that sulfur be his fuel of choice. Sulfur is a good candidate. It's a solid at room temperature. Sulfur does melt at about 240 degrees Fahrenheit, 115 degrees Celsius, and its ignition point is around 390 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. That's a nice lowish ignition temperature. Burning sulfur is an exothermic reaction that can reach 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1100 degrees centigrade. So Hellfire will burn hot enough to get the job done. It's not the best choice, but we can make it work. So, for fuel? We don't like it, but we'll tentatively say check. And cross our fingers. Heat. Heat is critical in maintaining a healthy fire. The heat source is the burning body-soul sulfur triad. We think that as long as something's burning down there, we'll be able to produce enough heat to keep hell burning. Maybe not at crematorium temperatures, but hot enough to do the job. If and when hell is operating at maximum burn and has reached a self-sustaining heat level, we can check this one off. To be safe, we think it prudent to have a ready supply of some other accelerant to make sure hell's fires don't go out. In the middle of something important. Ignition source. This one's a little less clear because there's a discrepancy about whether hell is already burning or if God's just waiting for the right moment to hit the on switch. If hell is already a-roaring and a-blazing, we'd love to know what he used to start the fire. We have that short list of ignition sources, so we can check this one without breaking a sweat. God just needs to decide which one will it be, or tell us what he used. Once the fuel has been ignited, we think Hellfire will burn brightly and hell will be toasty warm. But we do have concerns about the oxygen supply. The limiting factor to hell's fires will be the oxygen supply.
We've all seen burning things and their flames, right? The chemical composition of the burning thing determines the color of the flames. Our humans burn wood to keep us warm during cold weather, so we are very familiar with the soothing yellows and oranges in the wood stove. We do occasionally see blue flames, but only when our humans are really on their game tending the fires. The Bible is mum on this question of flame colors of burning bodies and souls. The color and intensity of a flame depends on the kind of fuel and the composition of the surrounding gases. Usually for us here on Earth, the gas feeding the fire is oxygen. And that's pretty convenient for us. Look at those pretty colors. You can see the colorful effects of burning different metals in our fireworks celebrations. This will definitely lose something without the audio. But there you have it. Different metals, different colors. The chemical composition of bodies and souls will control the colors of the flames of hell. Soul fuel is largely carbon and water, with some calcium and phosphate in the bones and teeth. That means bodies and souls and the sulfur fuel together will burn mostly as yellows and oranges and blues. Red, if there's a lot of mercury in the dental work. We're going to have to leave this burning question open until someone ponies up some color footage of souls on fire. How's about it, viewers? Submit your footage so we can take a look. When we see souls a-burnin', maybe we'll be able to back-guess the soul chemical composition.
Is the old adage where there's smoke, there's fire actually true? Not necessarily. Take smoldering, that's burning something slowly and without flames at a temperature less than the ignition point. But scripture is clear, hell has fire. And fire tells us that hell has an oxygen-rich atmosphere. And hell has smoke. Revelation 14:11 says those who worship the beast will be subjected to everlasting torment, and the smoke of their torment will rise up forever and ever. That tells us that hell's fires generate hell smoke. What is smoke? Smoke is a suspension of airborne particulates, air, and other gases that are emitted when something is burned. The particulate matter in smoke is usually composed of carbon, we call that soot. Other particulates may be drops of condensed tar and non-combusted materials like ash, flecks of metal, and a few other unhealthy things. Why do we get smoke? Very simple. When a fire is not hot enough, the fuel is not burned efficiently or completely, and smoke is generated. Smoke means incomplete combustion of the fuel. We looked into flame colors a minute ago. Does smoke color tell us anything useful? In the Catholic tradition, white smoke means we have a new pope. Black smoke means no new pope yet. In Native American cultures, smoke was used as a visual long-distance communication. With those two exceptions, we can say that smoke is usually an unwanted byproduct of combustion. Smoke just means something's burning. The smoke is the unburned part of the fuel. What other effects do we see? Most flammable things on Earth have a water content. When the fuel being fed to a fire is wet, the fire has to burn hot enough for long enough to boil off the water before the fuel can really burn efficiently. Steam looks like white smoke, but it's steam and not smoke. Revelation 14:11 distinctly calls out smoke and not steam. So we can assume all the water has boiled off the bodies and souls by the Revelation 14:11 point. And that hell smoke tells us hell is not burning hot enough. The smoke must mean God has just kindled his fire, but it's not quite up to full burn yet. He knows that it will take some time for his hellfire to reach maximum burn temperature before he begins casting in the bodies. Or the souls. Or whichever. Revelation smoke has to mean incineration is imminent, but there's still a few minutes left for you to get absolved. But you'd better be quick about it.
Besides hell smoke, burning things in hell also generates chemical emissions. We'll call those air pollutants. Let's guess what those emissions would look like. What's up on the screen is our best guess as to what hell's emissions look like. Kindly note we were not able to find data on emissions from burning human bodies alone. Crematoria burn other fuels like natural gas or propane to keep their fires burning. Remember, it takes a lot of heat energy just to boil off all that body water before the dry body can burn. So, separating the emissions from bodies or souls versus the background fuel cannot realistically be accomplished. What you see up there is typical crematorium emissions, and it's a combination of bodies, souls, and the fuel. As near as we can tell from hanging around the local crematorium after hours, the emissions from burning bodies are mostly gases like sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxides, carbon monoxide, and various volatile organic compounds. There could be some minor amounts of mercury vapor depending on the amount and age of the dental work. Maybe some trace amounts of various other metals and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. You know, normal air pollutants from burning organic matter. Nothing special here. Assuming the emissions from burning souls mirror physical bodies, just in lesser amounts, seems like a reasonable approach to us. That's our best guess at the chemical fingerprint of burning bodies and souls. Where are the smoke and exhaust gases from hell going to go? Revelation 14:11 says they rise up forever and ever. If we're in an open cavern, the roof could be forever high up. Sure. The gases, smoke, embers, and so on still will have to be vented out, or else they'll smother the hellfire. And nobody wants that. Or do they? Let's think about this for a minute. Have we found any mysterious emissions that could be coming from hell? Mysterious? No. Anywhere around the globe? No. Nothing? Have young Earth advocates even looked? We thought not. We expect that young Earth creationistas will claim that volcanoes are the exhaust stacks of hell. Let's see if we can head them off at the pass and prove them wrong before they have a chance to propose it. Those killjoys at the U.S. Geological Survey say emissions from volcanoes are 99% carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and water vapor. The other 1% are trace amounts of hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen fluoride, and a few other, even more minor gases. Most of the gases are acid gases, and they are all toxic to some degree. During eruptions, volcanoes add volcanic ash to their everyday normal passing of gas. Volcanic ash is not carbon-based ash like the soot and smoke we find in automobile exhaust or with fires and burning bodies, but rather particulates composed of rock fragments, mineral crystals, and volcanic glass. So no soot or other carbon-based anything there. That will be important. Are there other possible emissions that could be from hell? Let's see. Burning would generate emissions that consist mostly of carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, carbon dioxide, methane, and particulates. Those are the carbon soot, smoke, and ash. Emissions from burning coal consist chiefly of sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, carbon dioxide, methane, mercury, other heavy metals, and particulates, that ash plus carbon soot and smoke. Burning petroleum fuels like gasoline and natural gas generates carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. And don't forget those particulates from gasoline and diesel fuel, the soot and the smoke. We don't really get particulates from burning natural gas, though. The emissions from burning wood, petroleum, coal, and natural gas all have chemical fingerprints. They're fairly similar to each other. And that makes sense, right? All organic stuff. Here's what we have concluded from our not exhaustive research. Volcano emissions are very different from emissions from burning anything else on our list. The chemical fingerprints are nowhere close. Volcanoes cannot possibly be the emissions from souls burning in hell. The fingerprints from burning organic fuels are also noticeably different from the chemical fingerprints from burning human bodies and souls. Coal fires underground or above ground do not match emissions of burning soul fuel, nor do the emissions from burning petroleum or natural gas. Ditto for burning wood. The chemical fingerprints of these other likely sources just do not match what we expect to see from burning human bodies and souls. Damn all their science. Maybe if those geologists were true Christians, their lab data would be more supportive of the young Earth creationist position.
As with all things earthly, we're sure hell is just perfect. That's what God does. He designs the perfect everything, right? For those believers out there who say God would never ever design such a horrible place, we agree. But we would. And we'd do it for free. Look, we all know God's a busy guy. Always oversubscribed but still miraculously able to meet his deadlines. So we'd like to help God with his hell. Let's see if we can design the perfect hell. First things first. Let's talk money. Through all this script work, we still are not crystal clear on who is actually in charge of hell. Some aspects seem to be in God's wheelhouse. Other things seem to be in Satan's jurisdiction. To proceed with our design, we do need to know who is in charge of making hellish decisions. Normally, we design for a fee. But for God or Satan, we will design this for free. We do not want to incur God's wrath. But we do still need to send out the invoice. It's an accounting thing. Should we be sending our invoices to God or to Satan? Are they working together on this one? And so after resolving the billing question, we can design. We need a ton of information, though. Answers to our questions will determine just how far we can take this design. We think we can take it to the concept stage but not final design. We'll go as far as we can. During this discussion, we will flash several pictures up on screen to get our creative juices flowing. 'Cause there's still some question about whether hell is open for business now, we will assume we still have time to design. Can someone out there ask God how much time we have? We seem to have misplaced his contact information. He's been tough to get a hold of lately. Okay. First things first. Has God or Satan thought the whole operation through? Did either of them design hell or are they just winging it? We need to know if we'll be starting from scratch. And if hell is already open for business, is there any baseline data that we can use? It is still not clear after all this if hell is used for disposing of only bodies or only souls. We will design the operation to be interchangeable and workable for burning bodies or souls or both. Just to be safe. And we will design our hell to be a model of efficiency. You'll see that the devil is in the details. As we understand it, bodies and souls will be tormented forever in a mix of open fires and a lake of fire. Not the best choice for disposal, but we can work with that. Here's our battery of questions. How many souls will be in hell? We're guessing billions upon billions because even the most devout of believers among us will be booking a flight to somebody else's hell. So many religions, so many hells, so little time. Will new arrivals be marched directly into the flames and lake of fire, or will there be some processing first? We think we read the Eastern Orthodox churches allow for a 40-day self-reflection and judgment period right after death. So those believers will spend 40 days milling about in a separate waiting room. We'll include that room in our design. Will we need restrooms there? Eventually hell will be crammed full of eternally burning bodies and souls. We'll have to make provisions for cutting that off at some point to prevent overcrowding until the resurrection frees up space. The supply of bodies and souls will be in the billions while space for a hell on earth will be limited. We're open to suggestions on how to achieve our goals here. Leave us your thoughts in the comments below. What is Hell's ambient temperature? We should be designing to reach somewhere in the neighborhood of 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, 870 degrees centigrade, for maximum burn efficiency with no smoke. But we'll need to know the starting temperature. Engineers would call that the delta to be able to estimate our overall fuel consumption and to know if we can keep the sulfur stored in stockpiles without it melting. Ambient temps hotter than sulfur's melting point would be good for keeping the sulfur molten in the lake. Temp control will be a delicate balancing act. What's the burn time for a soul? We'll use NIH's human bodies at 2 to 3 hours apiece. For souls, we'll round down to an even 2 hours each because they should be drier upon arrival. Soul fuel can be fed into the fires and lake together. We will need a design feed rate. How many bodies and souls will be fed into the fires per unit time, say per hour or per day? Are there daily or annual quotas our Hell needs to achieve? That will tell God how often he needs to throw another soul on the fire. If we don't mechanize and we feed the soul fuel in by hand, we'll need to know how many feeders will be needed per shift. Who will serve as the feeders? We envision a small army of Satan's followers armed with pitchforks and other hand tools. Stoking the fires should be pretty easily automated, don't you think? Give Satan a little time off for a job, well done. If we mechanize the whole feed process, which we cannot recommend too highly, we will need to know the feed rate in order to determine which manufacturer and how many auto feeders we'll need. The lake of fire will be an awesome effect. But the Bible is not clear on some crucial details. Last time we checked, water alone was not flammable. But a lake of molten sulfur seems like an avoidable expense to us. Is the lake of fire a mix of water plus sulfur or solely molten sulfur? We know we're locked into using sulfur. Burning sulfur will get us at least close to maximum efficiency paired with minimal smoke and emissions. Hopefully Hellfire will burn hot enough. We won't think about the repercussions. And we don't want to second-guess God. But we'll just note there are many alternative fuels that will burn hotter than sulfur and would be more economical. Easier inventory control and storage. For example, natural gas will be cheaper and more easily conveyed to Hell than a supply of sulfur. We understand that cost is no object. We will design in some flexibility so we can sub better fuels in any time he likes. Back to sulfur. The sulfur supply will be the critical cog in this whole operation. How much sulfur should we keep in storage? God's decision. Hell will need lots and lots of sulfur. Our sulfur supply will need to be replenished from time to time. How often? We do not want to run out. We'll need to find a supplier who can supply us in bulk quantity. Dry sulfur will be easier and cheaper to buy, transport, and store than molten sulfur. And we will specify ultra-pure sulfur. Without the ultra-pure, we'll create an unwelcome residue. Fire needs air to breathe. Hell must be in an air-filled cavity somewhere. Does God have a place all picked out? Is it ready to go or will it need some updating? Soul fuel combustion will generate emissions and fumes. Incomplete soul fuel combustion will produce smoke. Smoke is an especially major no-no. We definitely want to minimize the emissions and fumes and prevent smoke. Hellfire needs to be controlled so as to maintain a temperature high enough to completely combust the bodies and souls while minimizing smoke and other air pollutants. Speaking of air-filled cavities, burning sulfur will produce sulfur dioxide emissions. Water will be plentiful from the burning bodies and souls and maybe a bit from that lake of fire. With all that water, we will also be generating sulfuric acid and hydrogen sulfide gas. That cavity will fill with Revelation's smoke and air pollutants really fast. We'll need something to clear the air. We've assumed the bodies and souls in Hell will need a breathable atmosphere, of course. All that air pollution. We will need an exhaust somewhere. Typically, we'd suggest a series of exhaust stacks, but an empty cavern that connects Hell with Earth's surface will work. It will have to be a different passage from the air intake and soul fuel portal, though. We'll also need a battery of exhaust fans that would draw the smoke and emissions away from the flames and push those pollutants to Earth's surface. The emissions could require controls to reduce or eliminate air pollutants, depending on where the emissions emerge from underground. Burning human bodies and souls will generate ash that will be a solid waste. We'll need to know how much ash Hell will be producing. We'll need to look into what we can do with the ash. Satan wouldn't want us to just throw it away. Willful waste makes woeful want. We might be producing water pollution as a byproduct of our operations. Does the lake of fire drain? Is the lake one single lake or is it a series of connected lakes? We can just divert the sulfuric acid we generate right into the lake of fire. That's pretty convenient. If the lake is only molten sulfur, then water pollution drops out as a major concern. Is the lake of fire large enough to have waves and currents? Does molten sulfur flow the same way as water? Did you know flowing molten sulfur can generate static electricity? We'll have to design countermeasures to prevent electrical problems. Right now, we have far too many information needs for us to progress past the conceptual stage. We're afraid the best we can do until we get answers to our hellish questions is this concept plan. You can tell this was a real struggle for us. We went through 665 versions until we reached version number 666, which is up on the screen now. This truly is the design from hell. A perfect melding of Iron Age theology and 21st century technology.
Do you have any thought-provoking questions for our young Earth friends today, number 2?
I do. Up on the big board now. Number 1. The perfect fire would have to be one without smoke, right? Why was there smoke reported in Revelation 14:11? Number 2. Sulfur's ignition temp is 390 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. Was God able to light up the sulfur, or did he need an accelerant to help start the fires of hell? Petroleum? Coal? Superbad souls? Napalm? What? Just tell us what it was. Number 3. How is oxygen supplied to the fires? Is there some kind of valving or a carburetor to control the air-fuel mix? Where is that control room? Number 4. Why would God allow smoke from hell to pollute our atmosphere when he could easily adjust the air-fuel mixture to get a more efficient burn? Could God have better designed human bodies and human souls to be perfectly, completely combusted under his hellish conditions? Number 5. What was or will be God's ignition source? Something natural like lightning, old school like flint and steel, or something more modern? We want to know if God is interested in trying new things or if he still prefers the classics. Number 6. Why is God so intent on using sulfur as his go-to fuel for Hellfire? There are so many better choices. He led the way with his 20th century better living through chemistry. Number 7. Did hell ever backdraft or backfire? Number 8. Where are hell's emissions? Don't even think of saying volcanoes. We just showed today the chemical fingerprints are not even close. Number 9. We've heard that burning physical bodies generates an ash. Do not ask us how we know this. Does burning human souls produce an ash? Number 10. What is the ambient temperature of hell? We just want to know what clothes to pack. And number 11. Do bad dogs go to human hell, or do we have a hell of our very own? We're asking for a friend.
Scripture clearly implies that the souls of the damned are what keeps hell burning. Our research, however, shows that bodies and souls won't burn hot enough by themselves. Hell will need the sulfur to burn hot enough. We've now published 2 videos on particular aspects of hell, and we're still extremely confused about some hell things, like, is hell accepting new patients now, or do we need to wait until Judgment Day for hell to finally open? Is hell currently occupied? Is hell currently burning? It's weird, but clerical and theological opinions vary. For such an important part of church teachings, we could really not find a good consensus within the many Protestant denominations. And throwing the Catholics into the mix only muddies the water even more. And Eastern Orthodox. Oi, Gewalt. Honestly, Christians, make up your minds already. This difference of opinion on such an important topic just reinforces our position that God was created in the image of man, not the other way around. Remember, religion gets everything backwards. Please drop the dogs a note in the comments below to tell us about the hell you were taught. Flip a coin, young Earth creationists, make a decision, and go with it for Pete's sake. We are a brand new channel. By now you know full well that you should subscribe here.
Do not make me send the dogs out to find you.